Hello, everybody. Welcome to Away Games, a Chicago Cubs and baseball podcast hosted by two comedians who love the Cubs but live in New York. My name is Adam Mamawala. I am one of them. I am not in person with Kevin this week, but here he is in a computer screen. Kevin McCaffrey.
Hey, everybody. Yes, we are not in person this time. We're back to Zoom stuff, but it's weird how now with podcast world, things sound better when we're not around each other.
Oh yeah, this will be better than our in-person recording where we sounded like the compound. No free ads.
We did sound like the compound, and it is bananas. The compound sounds like the compound, but it makes sense that it does with the year Ian Happ's having. By the way, Ian Happ, heat check. My man has been on fire for the last 2 weeks. If you listen to this show and follow us, by the way, on Twitter and Instagram at Away Games Pod, if you've listened to this podcast, you know we're rooting for some statistical oddities, or not oddities, but just sort of baseline levels of respectability. And one of those is Ian Happ getting to 200. He's up to 195 on the Ian.
Don't look now. Don't look now, Mr. Mendoza.
He's coming for your ass, Mendoza. You know how they used to have the Sean Dunston Sean-o-meter where they would track his batting average? I'm not going to do it because I like Ian Happ and I don't want it to be insulting. So I'm just here, but I am tracking the Ian-o-meter. Happ-o-meter, I guess, sounds better. Ian-o-meter sounds like you're trying to talk with something in your mouth.
I mean, look, I don't think there's any way this late in the season that you characterize it as a good year, no matter what happens. But like, if Happ could somehow by the end of September get up to 20 home runs and hit like 215, I would think he's got to feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, and I think just for in an actual serious sense for the baseball team going forward, Ian Happ is obviously, he's followed the Kyle Schwarber track to a degree that makes me extremely suspicious of all the major league coaching, especially hitting coaching at the major league level, where top 10 draft pick, bursts onto the scene, extremely good offensively right off the bat, has a down stretch that leads to him going back to AAA, then comes back up, kills the ball, and then sucks again, and then ends up being a top 10 pick who the Cubs are talking about non-tendering, and they non-tendered Schwarber straight into an all-star year, and they're going to talk about non-tendering Ian Happ at the end of this year too. So that is definitely something that I want to see him just sort of reestablish himself as the hitter we saw for his entire career up to this point, because that is actually a starter on a good team.
Yeah, it's always hard to say who is to blame for such things, because it's one of those catch-22s of like, all right, if a guy's breaking out, does the coach also get credit for that? Like, are there coaches in the minors or at the major league level who deserve credit for Patrick Wisdom or Schwindel or people who are actually playing well? Like, where do you draw the line in terms of who gets credit for that?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. And I think the answer has to be like, it's sort of impossible to know how much credit a coach should have. But if I've said this before, but if coaches exist, we have to assume they mean something. So that means there should be some level of accountability between if the coach and the player and what we think the player's natural baseline is. And the Cubs Major League hitting coaching and development has done a great job overseeing the worst downturns in a lot of players' careers who had established success before that. So it's hard to say. But as we look at this, it's like, and we talk about people to be excited for going forward, and like your boy Frank Schwindel has come up and been great. Schwindel's hit the ball really well. His strikeout rate is weirdly low, and he's showing power. That these are all good things. He's 29. Ian Happ is 27. That's another thing to remember too. Like Ian Happ, not only, I mean, we're getting excited about excited in sort of a relative way with this team, but Michael Hermosillo is up, and he was killing the ball at AAA. Well, Michael Hermosillo is 1 year younger than Ian Happ and has nothing of the track record of Ian Happ. So, I mean, while we get excited about possible other breakouts, we have this guy right here who's been terrible for most of this year, but has sort of been leveling off lately in Ian Happ. And if the Cubs are going to contend next year, Ian Happ should be, he would almost have to be a huge part of it.
Right. And I think with a guy like Ian Happ or even Schwarber, who are players who have kind of been streaky and or had like really extreme ups and downs, it's important to remember that like nobody is as good as they look when they're at their best unless they're like Mike Trout.
Hmm.
And no one is as bad as they look at their worst unless they're not in the majors anymore.
Hmm. Yeah, I think you're ultimately it's your Dennis Green. They are who we thought they were. It's your
Mhm.
Bill Parcells saying you are what your record says you are. You are what the back of your baseball card says. I mean, and there's other things. There's intangibles that have some level of value brought to a team. I assume that's why Yadier Molina still gets paid for baseball playing. I guess is there something else going on there? But ultimately, from an offensive standpoint, certainly you just are what the numbers say you are at the end of the day. And we can have analytics that can be like predictive and that say you're getting unlucky because you're getting BABIP'd and stuff like that. And that can be true to a point. That might tell you that better or worse is due, but ultimately the production is what it is. So yeah.
Well, and it seems like the Cubs have had over the past, I don't know, 3, 4 years, a not insignificant number of players who end up having decent years stat wise, but get there in a funky way, which can be difficult to put together a winning streak when like one guy's really hot and someone else is scuffling. And sure, at the end of the year, they end up hitting 250 with 25 homers, but one of them was hot in May and the other was hot in August. And so it just didn't quite line up at the right time.
And I think that's part of a thing that like an element that this team has been missing even in years and stretches where it's like, it seems like everyone were guys mostly were decent or fine and it just didn't end up being what we wanted. Like a guy like Ben Zobrist who did not have those extreme peaks and valleys as much is an element that I think this lineup has missed, because Ian Happ is crazy streaky. Kyle Schwarber was crazy streaky even at their best. Javi Baez is a guy who wasn't really. I think he was actually less streaky than people think on a year-to-year basis. He just gets to where he gets weird all the time, even within a single game.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I mean, there's a couple of guys who have been consistent since they came up. You can tell with the enthusiasm in my voice how much I mean, I'm happy for Rafael Ortega. I'm happy for Frank Schwindel. But as we get excited about Frank Schwindel, or for people who start talking about like, maybe Schwindel can be your first baseman going forward, let me remind you that Bryan LaHair was an all-star. Like this is like, I hope he does break out. I hope he's Joey Bats. I hope this is a late career Joey Bautista breakout from Frank Schwindel. That would be great. But I think you can't be a serious team going forward if the key offensive pieces you're talking about going into next year are Rafael Ortega and Frank Schwindel and even a Patrick Wisdom. Congrats on 20th homer, Patrick Wisdom. But like, that's not how a serious team goes forward. These are guys you should be excited to have on your bench and as occasional starters.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think I'm kind of getting through this period of time by, first of all, not watching as much of the Cubs as I once did,
Hey,
and
doubleheader
just
today,
being
by the
okay
way.
with that. They do have a doubleheader today,
Yeah.
but I think it's more. It can't get worse than what it is right now. I think even if the Ricketts try not to spend or try to limit Hoyer, there is no world in which they put out a team that looks like this for opening day next year. They just won't. They can't do it.
Well, I mean, the Cubs for the past month have had a 6.58 ERA over the last month, which is, I mean, just historically bad. It doesn't even really put it right. Like the team is at a 6.58 ERA. You don't win
Right.
any games that way. And that's how the Cubs have really rocketed up the draft board, right? As we speak, they're sitting 0.001 percentage points out of the sixth pick. They would have the seventh pick if the draft was today. And when you
Yeah.
have a pick around that range, you can be expected to get an Ian Happ like player. So, just
Whatever that
FYI.
means to you,
Yes.
that's what could happen. I mean, as we record this on what is it, Wednesday the 25th, Javi Baez and Chris Bryant are in the city we live in.
Mm-hmm.
Giants are playing the Mets. I think the Yankees are on the road. Otherwise, I would say all three of them were in New York.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still, even a month later, am having a hard time like watching the Cubs and even thinking of them as the Cubs without any of those guys there. But we are at least recording this after very low bar,
Yeah.
the best Cubs victory since that day,
Yeah.
right?
Since absolutely, because it was a really fun victory when Javi walked off and swept with his
Yeah,
bat
yeah,
against Amir Garrett. That was the last time the Cubs won at home It had been 4 days short of a month before since they won at home. Michael Hermosillo said he didn't know they had a song for when they win, so maybe he wasn't as much of a Cubs fan as it has
Yeah,
been
that seemed
sort of.
hard to believe.
Yeah, as like it's been pitched. He's from Illinois and he was a Cubs fan growing up, but maybe he was more into football because Go Cubs Go has been around a bit. But he was not aware of what you do when you win, and yeah, that this was absolutely the best win since that Javi walk off. And yeah, talk us through it. It was started by Kyle Hendricks, who had a rough start and then leveled off.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Hendricks gave us what a really good professional starter gives you, which is even if they get knocked around a little bit early, then they settle down and still give you 7 innings. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he obviously he didn't get the win, which would have. I think if there's anything stat wise that I've been rooting for down the stretch here, it's for Hendricks to somehow get close to 20 wins, which clearly it's not going to happen. Um, but
But
it was yeah. Go ahead.
oh well, the only thing is perfect for this season. We set a goal, a sort of like real consolation prize goal, and now we're moving the goalposts lower because if Kyle Hendricks gets to 17 wins, that's a
Yeah.
career high. So
Okay.
he won 16. He went 16-8 in 2016 when he led the world in ERA.
How did he
So
not have more wins that year? That's incredible to
I
me with
mean,
that
and
good of
how
a
does he have
team.
this many this year? This is in terms of everything else. This is the worst year of Kyle Hendricks' career,
Right.
and he could win somewhere between 15 and 20.
Almost feel like pitcher wins are irrelevant.
They end up being pretty silly, but yeah, he's got a few more starts to go. So yeah, he basically professionally kept you in the game, and they should have taken him out after sixth, probably.
Yeah.
But he went back out there in the seventh, ends up giving up a fourth run after shutting the Rockies down for a while, and yeah, and then the comeback
But then, I
began.
mean, just some clutch hitting. I mean, David Bodie unfortunately grounded into two bases loaded double plays, which has got to be incredibly frustrating. It was basically a replay of the exact same swing. It was just like kind of rolling over it. I assume he hit it hard because he's David Bodie, but like
Right, but
very
that's
easy 6-4-3.
but
Yep.
it's just been the same story with David Bodie for so long, where he hits the ball harder than almost anyone. And I have been, previous to this year, very much a bullish on David Bodie, a believer
Yeah.
because he has that skill. And you just hammer it into the grass, and it doesn't do you much good, and you end up leaving the game with more outs than you had at bats, and that
Right.
sucks.
Right, but I mean so Bodie grounds into his second bases loaded double play that gets the Cubs to within 1 run. So there's a runner on third, 2 outs. I think this is bottom of the seventh or bottom of the eighth, and Michael Hermosillo, who other than the home run in Cincinnati had really not done a lot since being called up, hits a clutch double.
Two strikes
Um,
too. Two
yeah,
strikes.
really really nice piece of hitting. And then Ortega, as he has done really since he's been called up, just absolutely clobbers a ball and pimps it just immaculately.
Yes, a great job pimping that homer. Knew it as soon as he got it. It was one of those things where off the bat, it looked very well hit, but I was wondering if it was hit too much on a line to get out.
Hmm.
And seeing his reaction to it made me be like, "Oh, I think that's gone." He really knew it. And I mean, at this point in the season, there's guys who knows if this is a hot streak for Ortega or let's say from a baseball perspective, Ortega's been hammering righties. He can't hit lefties, but you could have an Ortega Hermosillo platoon of sorts that could be useful. Possibly, we have to see how Hermosillo hits left-handers, but Ortega seems like he can hit righties at a decent clip,
Yeah.
and that might not be a fluke. But no matter what, it's cool to see guys who finally get their chance at the major league level and then get a moment that they'll never forget, a moment that they'll be able to show their kids forever, that they just got to experience. Hitting a walk-off homer at Wrigley Field is such a cool thing for anyone to get to do.
Right, and that's kind of the secondary storyline that we don't think about as much as fans is like, we're all very bummed out right now, and I think a lot of people are somewhat emotionally checked out, and clearly Wrigley has not been as packed as it has been in recent years this time of year. But yeah, these guys are still getting to play major league games at Wrigley Field. Patrick Wisdom is still crip walking as he warms up, and he's looking damn good doing it.
He is, and he's reached 20 home runs in ultimately not
Yeah.
that many at bats. Patrick Wisdom, he's crip walking, looking good. People are very thirsty about him physically on the internet, and go ahead, get after it. You know, forget I would say waxed vaxxed hot guy summer, but we know the Cubs are not terribly vaxxed, more vaxxed than they were before, but still not at the threshold. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
but
I mean,
that's
I
yeah.
watching the Cubs play the Rockies, who we all just saw last week in Colorado, felt a little good to see what is Bard, right, in the
Daniel
ninth
Bard.
inning. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
not get it done against the Cubs. I mean, I think by the transitive property of baseball, that makes the Cubs better than the Padres. I'm just saying. I mean,
And you
he
know
went
what?
through the top of the order,
Uh-huh.
got outs
That
in Colorado, and couldn't get Ortega out.
that's very true. And I mean, unfortunately for the Padres, they have been playing about as well as the Cubs as
Yeah.
of late, which is too bad. That which puts the Reds into currently the
Hmm.
second wild card spot. So
If
we'll
that
see if
means Castellanos resigns, I am gonna lose it.
I know that's a thing. It's like that's what I've had that thought too. Like, oh, that might make Castellanos less likely to sign with the Cubs, but the Cubs didn't give the guy an offer, so it's like I don't know what I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Who knows? It's who knows what they're going to do going forward. But I think we're stuck on hoping for things that would just be giving blind faith to even the Cubs even trying to do.
I mean,
Um,
if we had a Bucks Suns NBA Finals, can we at least get like a Reds Mariners World Series?
That would be fun. That would be just full who gives a shit and like like teams. I would say both teams who hadn't won ever would be ideal. Because
Yeah.
the Bucks had one, but it was back when Lou Alcindor was in the building,
Hmm.
so it had been a long time. But yeah, you get your Mariners and I would say, I mean, the Brewers are the main team I'm thinking about that hasn't. I guess the Padres haven't won either. So let's say Padres because I'm not gonna be rooting
Oh,
for the Brewers.
Padres Mariners World Series would be just delectable.
Yeah, that would be very
I'm
fun.
only okay with the Brewers making the World Series if they lose in excruciating fashion.
Yeah, if Josh Hader gets walked off like a bunch of times, that would be okay. But yeah, that was a fun game on Monday to watch and to watch Ortega
Yeah.
walk off and watch these dudes celebrate.
Well, you were talking about, it's sad that we're talking about it. This, I don't think this is what you and I thought we would be talking about at this time of year, but a Hermosillo Ortega platoon. But along those lines, like of the guys on this team, how many do you see being a part of the future, and how many do you want to see as a part of a future that the Cubs have in any capacity, like whether that's off the bench or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Like in a perfect world where the Cubs actually spend money and try to at least do some like stopgap signings until these 16-year-olds grow up.
Right.
Who of this current group do you want to see stick around, and in what capacity?
Well, a guy we haven't mentioned yet, but we saw in the Monday game as well, Manny Rodriguez. Manrod is a relief pitcher who might really have something. He's throwing 97-mile-an-hour power sinkers. He mixes that with a 90-mile-an-hour slider and 97 to 100-mile-an-hour four-seamer. So, I mean, like Manny Rodriguez, for instance, is a guy who you could see being a reliever on a good team. And there's a few guys like that. Rowan Wick, for instance. Is another one who has been back up just kind of recently. He was missing for a while, but that's a guy. And I mean, and as from the position player side, it's still the guy out of the position players here. Wilson Contreras on the IL. Obviously, I've been a big proponent of extending Contreras for a while. Kyle Hendricks, same thing. I do not want to see the Cubs do another, okay, one more reload and dealing like both of those guys this winter, for instance. I have
Yeah.
no time for that. I think it's Ortega, Wisdom, Schwindel, Hermosillo, and Happ are guys, as far as what this roster is right now, that you could see in some fashion on a winner. But as I've said before, the one thing that Jed Hoyer has proven to me he may be okay at is finding bench pieces. But he's built the whole team out of the bench. So
Hmm.
you can't do that. And on a good team of the names I just gave, like maybe half of those guys are able to actually be on the major league roster regularly. Um,
Right.
I would still be
Yeah,
in
in
favor.
the
Yeah.
like, why don't we build the whole plane out of the black box scenario? I think Jed Hoyer traded the wings and the engine in
Yeah,
July.
yes, exactly. And it's like it's completely dangerous. It's like, wait, you built the whole plane out of the tray on the back of the seat? It's just the tray? What the fuck, man? It's
Just
useful
that
if
weird phone that's in the seat that no one's used since 1996.
yeah, you built it keeps saying all I see is a sign that says no smoking. We all know you're not allowed to smoke. How old is this plane? It's just that. Just been built the whole time. He's got none of the important parts.
Hey, the plane is a landmark, Kevin.
The plane is yes, it's a landmark. It is literally history, is what this is. And the guys we're talking about aren't as I think aisle 424 or aisle 434, I forget, but saw a tweet that was blowing up kind of that like the Cubs didn't even get younger. The guys we're talking about here are the same age as the guys who are really good who just left. Ortega is 30, Schwindel's 29. These are guys, and Javi's younger than these guys. You know what I mean? Like, so they really have gotten cheaper, not younger, from like what we see here. But what we see here cannot be the team going forward, as we
Would
said.
you be okay with Patrick Wisdom starting next year on opening day?
I mean, I can see a scenario where I was. Yeah. I mean, but are you telling me they signed one of the shortstops and Anthony Rizzo back, or, Starling Marte and Javi and okay. I mean, like,
In this
there's
scenario, they have signed Trevor Story, Nicholas Castellanos, and Marcus Stroman.
yeah. Yeah, then you can start Schwindel. Yeah, or excuse me, you can start. Well, you can start Schwindel
Start
and
them both.
and Wisdom. Yeah, I mean, if you were bringing those bats in, you're coming close to you're adding pitching. But the thing is, even that, and I'm only saying this not to be negative and harpy about things, but like just to keep people aware of what ownership owes here. Stroman, Story, and Castellanos coming in. So let's say Stroman is replacing Yu Darvish, from who was on the team and would have still been under contract going forward. And then Story and Castellanos replacing Javi, Rizzo, and Chris Bryant. It's still not as good as the team was when it wasn't good enough. And I think that is something, if you're talking just piece for piece, swapping in and out, yeah, that's what we're talking about. We would, I think, both consider a surprisingly good offseason, right?
Right.
It's still not as much as this team should be doing. They should be doing that and more. So, yeah, that's a good question, and I think basically there's a lot here on this team that's here for now and needs to be cut off and discarded. And if you have just extra stuff on yourself that needs to be shaved down, you need to get Manscaped, and you need to use the promo code Away Games to get 20% off your Manscaped items. And Adam, what does Manscaped do for you?
That's a great question, and thanks so much for asking. Really good transition. If you need to give a trim to the old Schwindel, do I have a product? Do I have a product for you? We're talking about a sleek, well-designed, and optimized trimmer that makes shaving time your favorite time in the bathroom. I enjoy the bathroom quite a bit. I mean, I don't want to get too crass here, but sometimes I just relax in there. Phones have really changed the game for bathrooms.
Phones have, and if you have roommates, boy, the bathroom is a great place to just have no one talk to you.
It's like very like reality TV show. It's like the only place you can go where nobody's bothering you.
Absolutely. Just look in the mirror and be like, I cannot believe what Julie said to me, just to start giving your confessionals. And you cannot get like people love Patrick Wisdom's chest. People love that look, his unbuttoned look. He's got to keep all that tight. You know what I mean? He's not just letting it go 70s movie star style. We don't know that he's using Manscaped products, but that to my eye, it looks like a lawnmower.
He looks
4.0
Manscaped.
job.
Wisdom looks he's very well kept. And look, even in a scenario like yesterday where there's terrible weather in Chicago, maybe your power goes out. Well, luckily for you, your lawnmower 4.0, it's already charged. It can be charged wirelessly. It's got a light on it, so even if you're dining by candlelight, you can take a break from your romantic dinner and go trim your balls, because we got a 4000K LED spotlight whenever you need it for a more precise shave. We got sizes 1 through 4. You can customize how long of a wisdom beard you want to have down there.
Mhm.
And I got to tell you, I've used it. I'll use it again. And again, I'm really bullish on this underwear. I say, the Lawnmower 4.0, really good stuff. But if you need some dry fit underwear, look no further than manscaped.com. And again, if you use promo code AWAYGAMES, 20% off your entire order. And international free shipping, no matter where you are listening to this Cubs podcast. I know we do know a Cubs fan in Australia. It's possible that he listens.
We got a London listener, we know, and people
Yeah.
are we have a comment on our last YouTube episode for away games that people have been using the Manscaped code, and it's
Amazing.
working out. So hell yeah, get after it. Promo code away games, get your free shipping, your 20% off Manscaped.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and so I'm looking forward, I guess. We've got a doubleheader today against the Rockies. So more Cubs baseball than ever to not watch or watch, whatever your day has in store for you.
I do believe do we have a Steele start today?
Maybe we have Justin Steele and Keegan Thompson is up. He made his first major league start last week too. So these are things we're looking at going forward.
We've got a Davies and a Steele.
A Davies and a Steele. So yeah, these are, I think we've got Steele. Looks like he's going against Austin Gomber, a matchup of lefties. Austin Gomber, you might remember, is the headline piece who went to Colorado in exchange for Nolan Arenado, for Christ's sake.
Christ.
These are the deals big market teams should be making. Those are the deals.
And game one, we've got Herman Marquez, who we saw last week.
Mhm.
He had the runs, and hopefully the Cubs will score some runs.
Now we're talking. Now this is just absolutely a the accurate and good and surprising wordplay. Excuse me. Let me fuck up saying wordplay. What a meta situation that is. That you get on away games better than any other baseball podcast. But Justin Steele, that's exciting to watch. Zach Davies, we're coming to the end of that run. Good luck and God bless Zach Davies going forward. But yeah, Justin Steele, Keegan Thompson, these are things to be looking at going forward, guys. Between those two and Adbert Alzolay, maybe
making a rehab start in AAA.
Making a rehab start in AAA. These are guys who they're not all going to be starters on a good team going forward, but one of them, maybe two of them might. So these are guys to keep an eye on who have genuine talent. And of those three guys I just mentioned, I think they're all at worst going to be decent major league relievers, and I do believe there is a decent major league starter or two in there. And that is what the Cubs need almost more than anything going forward is starting pitching to stick. We have enough guys who can be good bullpen arms. At some point, we need a starter to really come up and stick here.
Yeah.
And do you know who the Cubs are playing this weekend?
It's sad to say that I don't.
And I know, because you always do. It is the White Sox. So if you're gonna,
oh boy,
so who knows? Hendricks is going to get one of those starts against the White Sox. Keegan Thompson's going to get a start. I think Keegan Thompson's just the kind of guy who is going to relish that. It's going to be, it's the closest thing to like a playoff or contention feel that the Cubs are going to get.
And I assume this is going to be at the White Sox because the other series was in Wrigley.
Yeah, so that's something to watch this weekend if you're into it. It looks like Keegan Thompson is going Friday. So yeah, Cubs versus White Sox, and that'll be at least a thing. It's fun to watch. It's fun. If the Cubs can beat the White Sox, that's fun to watch at least. So
yeah, I think the White Sox clearly are going to run away with that division, but it would be
easily
fun and interesting if sometime in September the Cubs have an impact on the playoff race, even though they're nowhere near it. Like, it's been a long time since we've seen the Cubs in that position, but given what is laid out in front of us, I will take the Cubs, disrupting the Brewers if that can happen or something along those lines.
Yeah, or just
I don't really have any dislike for the Reds, but
yeah, just makes someone we don't like sad. That's basically what we're down to hoping for. And looks like the rotation for the Cubs has been announced for this weekend. So it's going to be Keegan Thompson game 1, the ever overlooked Alec Mills game 2, and Kyle Hendricks 3. And Mills had a rough start last time out, but besides that has been very good since coming back into the rotation. And at some point, the guy's results have to speak for themselves. You know, this is Alec Mills isn't going to be your number one starter anytime, but the results wise, he's out there, you know, and he put up start after start until last start that were good. So
yeah. Well, Alec Mills, as we know, he's a victim of his own aplomb. He's a very calm man, much like the old Paul Mooney Chappelle Show thing where he said that Wayne Brady made Bryant Gumbel look like Malcolm X. Alec Mills makes Kyle Hendricks look like, I don't know, Fernando Tatis.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good comparison. So, yeah, so that's what we got this weekend, and otherwise, you know, Cubs are in the chase to get maybe as high as the 5th pick if they're worse than everybody the rest of the way, and they've been worse than everybody for about a month. So it is possible.
I mean, I guess at least now we're mentally prepared for at least the end of this season. Like 2018 and 2019 were about as painful as it got in terms of a season ending before it should have. So not that this is better, but at least I'm just kind of resigned to our fate here. I don't know. I'm rationalizing with myself.
Well, I mean, because we're the kinds of Cubs fans who watch, like, to some degree. I mean, even if we're not watching the games, I can't stop myself from following and from reading up on what happened and what's going on and all that stuff. And so we haven't been in this position a long time where it's the end of the year and we're looking for like individual guys to do something interesting to maybe be a part of something going forward. But there's still reasons to watch, but less people are going to the park. The Cubs are still 8th in the majors in attendance. But that is less than almost always. So there are less people. This is maybe a new era of Cubs baseball where they're not going to see bullshit in the middle of a pandemic, also, like, but they're not going to see absolute bullshit while the Ricketts literally give themselves plaques to congratulate themselves for the bare minimum of renovating a building they bought. Like, you know, so the bare minimum shit, literally giving themselves plaques in the middle of this as they open a Hall of Fame without Sammy Sosa in it, a Cubs Hall of Fame without Sammy Sosa in it.
I'm like particularly offended by that because you were already a Cubs fan, but like the reason I am a Cubs fan is Sammy Sosa.
It's just pretending history isn't real. Like it's just, and as I think we touched on this before in our last episode when we were recording live in Colorado, but I don't know, it takes away from everyone else who is in it because it's so glaring who's not there. And it's just like, okay, well, how real is this Hall of Fame then?
Right.
Because I think you can make a case for Sosa not being in the Hall of Fame. I personally think it's a bullshit case. You know,
if they want to make a separate wing, go ahead, but throw McGuire and Sosa and, you know.
Yeah, but a Cubs Hall of Fame without Sammy Sosa, you just look like an idiot. You look like it's I don't know. It doesn't.
He's arguably the most famous Cub that there's been. I mean, obviously Ernie Banks is Ernie Banks and he deserves all the credit in the world. But in terms of like pop culture significance of the past, I don't know, 30, 40 years, who is a more important Cub?
Yeah. And what he did while he was here counted. You know, you're mad that he left a game early. We've had guys do worse than that and stick around, you know? So, I mean, that's bullshit and whatever, but it's sort of par for the course here. And
sure, he played his boombox music too loud. And did Kerry Wood smash it? I don't know, but you know what? Unpopular opinion. I kind of dig bachata.
I would definitely be the Kerry Wood in that scenario, but you can put them both in the Cubs Hall of Fame. It's fine. So yeah, but I guess point being, less Cubs are going to the less Cub fans are going to the games right now, and it makes perfect sense that they are. Why spend your money when they won't spend theirs? But
sample size of one. The last time I was at Wrigley Field was the series that Ben Zobrist returned in early. It's like right after Labor Day against the Mariners in 2019, and I am going to Chicago in a month. I'll be there like the last weekend of September. I don't think that I'm going to seek out a Cubs game. I actually might go to a Chicago Fire game at Soldier Field. That's how disillusioned I am.
Hell yeah, it's fire season, baby. It unfortunately is because the world is burning, but it's also Chicago Fire season, baby.
You do a fire sale, I go to a fire game.
There we go. That's the away game's promise. Anything else to touch on before we get out of here, Adam?
I got nothing.
I got nothing. They got they're trying to have more than nothing.
Much like the Cubs, I got nothing.
Yeah, there we go. Hey, everybody. Thank you for listening. Please do, if you need some manscaping, get over Manscaped, promo code away games, 20% off, free shipping. Get after it. That helps keep us going, and we'll keep going. We're gonna keep doing this podcast, and we're gonna keep tweeting and Instagramming at Away Games Pod, and hopefully we'll see you after a sweep of the White Sox. Let's say,
hey, you never know.